I know you think that it might be broken or something, but I'm not, okay?
I didn't mean to assume anything, but your boyfriend did crack a pool cue up the side of my face.
I'm sorry about that. Our relationship, it was complicated.
Was?
Yeah, I don't think that Tony will be coming around anymore.
Why is that?
Some agent came looking for him, which can only mean one thing, that he's wanted for something, which is not surprising.
No shit.
So you just saw a clip from The Hand That Feeds, and sitting next to me is the writer of that film, Wes Johnson. Happy to be here. I've known Wes for a little bit, sort of online, but we've crossed paths a number of times at the events around here. So excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Conversation with you.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel the same way. I feel like we've known each other for a long time, but that if you could count the amount of times we sat down and like had a chat, like on one hand,
Right.
which is kind of a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully this will be the change of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you have been in the Minnesota film scene for a while now.
A little while.
Very prolific writer and director. But you also do a number of
Who's
other...
paying you to say these kind of things?
But you also play a number of other roles. I know music is something you've dabbled in, graphic design. So just, lay it out for what you do on set.
You know, I think, I mean, that's kind of the nature of art, isn't it? You know, I think that we throw ourselves in and we try to find our way. And I've just, what do they say? I'm kind of like, I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, I think that's how the saying goes. So, yeah, I mean, I have to say music is kind of the start for me. I mean, I've always loved movies. And the you know, I'm sure we'll delve more into like the horror end of that, but I always love to give my mom credit, which she hates it. But I love to give anytime people are like, well, what got you into movies and horror and that stuff? And I'm like, my mom, honestly, for the mere fact that she did not monitor whatever you know what I mean? Just no adult supervision at the Blockbuster. I'd go to the back dusty wall and pick off whatever, you know, campy horror movie I could find, and she was okay with it. And it, you know, obviously by the time she figured it out, it was like, well, now it's pretty far gone. So I've always had a big affinity for film. And you know, obviously on the watching end of it, it's like I don't collect a lot, but I have a very extensive, like, you know, DVD, Blu-ray, VHS. I kind of have all of it. So that, you know, from a young age, and then kind of getting into music, because that was kind of my first love. Something happened somewhere along the lines where those two just came together. You know, I'd never thought about making music for film until I had an instructor at I went to IPR. We got a lot of colleagues who went to IPR. This was years before it was like had any film involvement. It was only a music school. But I had a professor who was a composer, and he was the one to be like, you know, you should try this, you know, dabble. It's kind of nice. You're on your own. You're not dealing with the dramas of being in a band, because that was most of my teens and early 20s was the politics of being in a band, you know, in a rock band and whatever. And it's funny, working on a film set in some ways is, you know, there's some parallels there. Yeah. But I was like, cool, making music on my own for something that I already love, and that kickstarted it. And then from there, it just sort of spiraled. You know, I'm sure you can attest to this, right? Writing a screenplay, a lot easier than writing a book. Because that's what I always thought is like, well, writing a book, I don't think I have the patience for it. I'm too ADHD. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could do that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just write scripts because it's quicker. And then, you know, now here we are years later and I'm still doing it. And, you know, it's my favorite thing in the world. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know you mostly for writing and the work I've seen, but I also got to see some of your directorial efforts as well. And what was really apparent to me when watching a lot of your stuff is that you have seen a wide variety of horror throughout the history of horror. I think it was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, at Z-Fest last year, you did kind of like a J horror inspired thing. That was really cool.
We're really proud of that one.
Yeah, that was awesome. The 48-hour one you did, which I think won.
Yeah, our balance one.
That was sort of like a gothic kind of vibe, with a modern sort of twist at the end. So that was really cool. But talk a little bit about your influences, your favorite horror, and what attracts you to the genre.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a loaded question. I would say, as far as I guess I would say like a directorial approach, and I'm sure you can probably appreciate it, but I feel like with short films, it's always a challenge. At least for me, it was always like, what haven't we tried or what haven't we experimented with? Every time we jump into a new thing, it's kind of like, what new elements can we bring to the table that we haven't played with, and then we kind of see what sticks. And then once you kind of figure out your style and your approach, you kind of go back to the old toolbox that you can rely on. But that, as far as the creative approach, that's always my outlook, is like, what can we do to sort of reinvent ourselves or discover ourselves? But the horror genre as a whole, I think for me, the biggest thing for me is it's always been that's my thrill. You know what I mean? I always say everybody likes to kind of like test their bravery in some way. I think that's just human nature. For some people, it's like riding roller coasters. You know what I mean? For some people, it's traveling the world and seeing what kind of trouble they can get into. Force PTO, best series I've ever seen, by the way.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about that just a little bit, because I'm honored to be here with the Force PTO guy.
Wow. It's a lot.
But the horror genre, that to me, that's my thrill. I'm not big on roller coasters. I'm not big on some of these things. For me, I loved going to the movie theater and getting the shit scared out of me. That was my thrill from a young age. Well, not a super young age, but young enough.
Right.
And that's what made me love it. That's what made me love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you've seen horror develop throughout the years. And I've been really interested lately in thinking about sort of the modern landscape of horror. So a lot of people think, or in the mid 2000s, it was sort of a lot of remakes, reboots, things like that. But more recently, I think we've seen in the indie scene in particular, a lot of really good, cool, unique horror movies come out. When you think about like A24 horror, Hereditary, The Witch, things like that.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Is there kind of a renaissance for horror going on right now?
I think so. I think that's the best way to put it, honestly. I think renaissance for horror. That should be a thing. Because I think, horror has always, well, how do I say? I think one of the nicest things about horror in general is that it's very free. There's not a lot of judgment. It's like, whether you're doing something that's never been done or you're doing something that's been done a million times, the audience is kind of the audience is there for it. You know what I mean? They're there for it. So it gives us a lot of freedom, I think, being in the genre, where there's just, I don't feel like it gets the same kind of criticism as like, the new Avatar movie, right? It's like people get so divided on things so quickly, call it, being elitist or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? I've never heard a director in the horror genre like really experience that so much. So I think having that pressure off has kind of opened the doorway for, directors like Ari Aster and some of these like visionaries to just go off the wall and do these really amazing, crazy, amazing things that have never been introduced to the genre before. But at the same time, we're still seeing like, to me, Thanksgiving, the Eli Roth movie, to me, that was like, it was a nice sort of revisit of those mid 2000s, movies that you were talking about, kind of like, I Know What You Did Last Summer or Urban Legend, some of these things where they're all just tropes,
Right.
and I can't speak for everybody, but I love that. I love that there's almost just kind of like, no rules, it doesn't, there's always going to be those few people that are just like, this is the same thing we've always seen a million times. But at the end of the day, the box office numbers are good. People were happy.
So you don't get tired of seeing remakes or reboots?
I would say the reboot remake stuff gets a little exhausting after a while, just because I think there's so many new like ideas out there. But I think for me, I'm definitely more in favor of like the tropes that we talked about. Like you can make a movie that we've all seen before, but like you use your own characters, give it a fresh spin. It doesn't have to be a reboot, doesn't have to be Exorcist Believer.
Right.
It's just like, it's, and David Gordon Green, it's like, I certainly understand what he's trying to do. Like, I think he's a very talented director. I just think he kind of set himself up, to sort of trip on that one, because you're taking literally the most like beloved, horror movie of probably all time. One of the scariest things that there, I just don't see a way to do that again.
Well, even his Halloween trilogy,
it started to kind of, it started to kind of take a downward slope. Started out really strong, I thought. My unpopular opinion, I think, is I liked Halloween Kills.
Okay.
I like the first two of them. First one, 2018, was just, it was like kind of a nice, let's go back to Laurie. But I liked Halloween Kills. I feel like everybody hated that movie. I thought it was great. I thought it was like one of the most violent, like Michael Myers, movies out of all the different Halloween franchise iterations. Evil Dies Tonight. I thought it was hilarious. I was a fan, but I think I'm like one of the few. Most people are like, no, it's just a bad movie.
Well, there is a movie we're going to get into in a second.
Okay, all right.
That I'm sure we disagree on, but to Halloween Kills, for example. So let me know what you think of this take.
Yeah,
because this is what I walked away with. Is the movie was trying to balance the idea of Michael Myers being like a symbol of evil that you can't kill,
right?
But while also being like a physical, trying to justify him in like a physical, like he's an actual guy, can be hurt, real sort of way.
Yeah.
And to me, the original, John Carpenter's original, to me that's great because he basically positioned Michael Myers as like anybody would have died had they been shot, stabbed, everything that happened to him at the end of that.
Yeah.
But he gets away, and it sort of became like an allegorical thing for evil can't die.
Right. Yep.
And then I felt like David Gordon Green's whole series was like couldn't decide which route it wanted to go definitively.
No, and I would agree with you on that. I do agree. I think it's very easy to tell when there's certain elements there that at least for me, I want to I wish I could sit down and talk with him about it, because I want to get in his head to be like, what were you thinking during this part, or maybe you weren't thinking about this at all. But it's, much like The Exorcist, I think Halloween is like a tough thing to try to go back and reinvent, especially when it's done so well the first time.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wish the reboot generation would take things that maybe weren't, maybe were like they were ahead of their time and they just couldn't do it yet. Like take the James Cameron approach. Like, now we have this new technology. Let's try to make this really bad movie that should have been good, and maybe we can make it good. Like, don't take the best things that already exist. But again, I think that's more of a general consensus. Like, again, at the end of the day, I'm still going to go see it.
Right.
I don't know if this is popular or unpopular opinion, and I'm actually kind of curious to know what you think about this take.
Sure.
I'll be honest with you. I think out of all of the people trying their hand at Michael Myers-isms, I think Rob Zombie did the best job.
Okay.
I really like the Robs. I'll say mostly the first one. The second one kind of loses people, and I totally get it. I still like it because I can. That's just a gift. I don't know, maybe a gift or a curse. I feel like I can see past certain flaws if I'm just already invested in it. You know, I'm like, okay, cool, white horse, ghost mom, like whatever, cool, I can take it. But at least the first one, I really liked it. But the reason I like it is I feel like Rob Zombie's approach was like he took John Carpenter's advice to him, and that was like, make it your own thing. Like, don't try to, like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing 'cause I don't know exactly what he said, but John Carpenter wasn't stoked about Rob Zombie making the movie. He was honest about it. It's very John Carpenter sounding, right? Like, yeah, cool, good luck.
Yeah.
Do your own thing with it. Like, don't try to impress me. You know, try to make my movie, make your movie. And I think he did that. And I think he did it well, but I love that it's one of those people love it or hate it. There's kind of no in between. It's like, you're with it or you're not. And I don't know, to me, good movies do that. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to make a movie like, I mean, well, you're never going to make a movie and everybody's going to like it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you can do something that leaves a mark where people either love it or they like really don't like it, you know, it's like that. There's good reaction on both sides of that. You've created a debate for people. It's still being talked about. You know?
Yeah.
I liked it. I know I'm not in on this and I'm behind the scenes, and we didn't even talk. Me and I'm not supposed to say anything, but I
could see your eyes glowing a little bit.
I'm like, no, I did enjoy the first one, and just what you were talking about, just because it was so unique and so different, and he made it his own.
He did. So. Yeah, it's very brutal, but like that's Rob Zombie's style. You know, it's just to like really like shock. And I think out of all the horror spectrum, like being able to shock people this day and age, I think is difficult. You know, there's a few, and I'm like hitting like a list of, I feel like we're going to talk about a lot of these people, but like David Cronenberg, right? He's like, that's his thing. He can shock you visually because he has ideas that people just don't think of. But anyway, what's your thoughts? So you were, Jennifer's glowing over there. She was happy. You're looking like you're ready to like kick me out of the studio.
I hated it.
Yes.
But
let the show begin.
It just, to me, like there were too many scenes that felt like just goofy.
Yeah.
Like when the dude is taking a dump and Michael Myers like knocking on the door.
I'm
like,
Joe Grizzly.
Yeah. Like to me, that was like, it took me out of any kind of fear or shock because I'm like, this is just a joke.
Yeah.
You know? And you have this stock character and he's just taking a dump and is going to get killed for the reasons of just upping the body count in the movie.
Yeah. Well, he needed the jumpsuit also. But yes, I know what you're saying.
But and I don't know. I like to think about, you know, ideas and deeper themes.
Yeah.
And I get that there's a certain appeal to movies that are just going for entertainment,
right?
Which is Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Which is what he's trying to do.
Kind of his thing, yeah.
But to me, like, I need to be engaging with something and thinking about it on a deeper way. Like, Halloween Kills, for my problems with that movie, it at least had me thinking about it.
Right, yeah.
I watched Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I'm like, okay, I guess this was good for, like, some visceral entertainment, but
yeah,
I don't know what I'm thinking about here at the end.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's no deeper meaning. At least with the mom ghost thing, I actually like two better. Because I'm like, I don't know if this is just random pretentious stuff that he's doing, if it actually means something, but at least I'm going to think about it.
Yeah, what I think, and this is I'm kind of just going off of my own speculation, but I feel like in 2, I think his focus was trying to make us, like, kind of fall into the, like, Laurie's kind of descending into, like, insanity a little bit. I think that's always kind of been his thing. Like, I think Laurie is the main character of those movies, right? Because it's her life that gets turned upside down. But it's like, it's weird. It's like, I like Rob's version and I like David's version for opposite reasons, right? It's like Rob Zombie's, you know, his Michael Myers, the first, like, you know, third of the movie is like, it's it's little Michael Myers just being like a shitty kid, you know what I mean? And then goes into the asylum, and it's just like they kind of take away the mysteriousness of him, and it's just more humanized, right? Like, no, yeah, at the end he's like big and invincible and scary and wears the mask and all that, but like, you know where he came from, which I think is like, I think that kind of goes against what John Carpenter wanted. You know, like that wasn't his goal. And I think David did that really well, where we don't, I mean, they address it a little bit. Like, to me, the Michael Myers and Halloween Kills is still just the shape.
Right.
Like, I don't know him as a man. We didn't really ever get that. We get little, you know, over the shoulder shots of him without his mask on.
Right.
We don't even need to talk about Halloween Ends, because that was
bad.
It's like, that's where it should end.
Yeah.
That was just,
yeah.
That was just something else. But,
so kind of moving into this in an interesting way is I was sort of on the side of critics, however much credibility you want to give them, with Rob Zombie's Halloween, because it didn't get very good reviews.
Right.
But one where, now flipping the script a little bit, is that I wanted to talk with you about is Blair Witch Project, is a movie that I despise with a passion.
Oh
my! For reasons that I'll go into. But if anybody could make the case for why it is good, I think it can be you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you the floor to explain what makes Blair Witch Project a decent movie.
Bless you. I'm so happy. I feel like I can make the argument for it because I've been in this fight a number of times. I've definitely been in this battle. So here's what I will say about the Blair Witch Project. I think I'll be careful here because I don't want to give you the ammunition. Okay. Let me put it this way. I don't think the Blair Witch Project would work today, right? Like, I think if we had all the same ingredients, I don't think it would have the same impact. The reason the Blair Witch Project, whether you like it or not, and we could tear that all apart, but I think regardless of like anybody's specific opinion, the reason it worked was because, to me, it was like the perfect time and place, right? It was like before, the internet was kind of just starting to be a thing, right? It wasn't like it is now. Found footage, there had been, it's not the first found footage movie to ever exist. Some people think that. There's been some other ones, but I think it was the first one to really bring the genre to the mainstream. And it just had the ability to kind of like suspend our disbelief, but even further, like literally convince a mass amount of people that it was real. You know what I mean? Like I was one of those like kind of nerds. Like I watched it, and it was hard to watch at a theater. I was like, wow, this is just like very overstimulating from motion, not from necessarily being a super scary movie, but I remember looking it up on the internet and trying to like investigate, and they went to some pretty good lengths to really convince us that it was real and that these people are missing and these are real tapes. And it's like all these things that couldn't be done today, Yeah. And I think that, I think that that's hard. It's hard to have that kind of ingenuity as a filmmaker. I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time just being like, what can we do that people don't see coming? What's a edge that we can find? Because it's just hard now because everybody has access to everything. So I understand. I guess I'll say I understand the people who don't like the movie. Like, I can get it. A lot of it comes down to what you're looking for, I think, in a movie. But it's just, to me, it's another Rob Zombie's Halloween, right? There's literally no middle ground. Like, people, it either worked for people or it didn't, And I don't think I won't judge you for hating on it, because again, I've been in this debate, and I know a lot of people who are a big fan, but that's my thing on it, is I think it pioneered something at the right time and place where it could never happen again. Nobody else ever did it the way they did. And for me, it just kind of deserves its like cult classic, star on the board.
Sure. So No, I give it credit for being revolutionary in the marketing sense.
Yeah.
And even the found footage, like you said, it's not the first found footage movie, but it was like the first mainstream sort of found footage thing that really took traction in the mainstream culture.
Right.
But I think you still have to judge the movie on actual movie techniques.
Sure.
You know, characters, I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't get emotionally invested in their problems. I thought they were dumb. I didn't think they had any distinguishing characteristics that would make me be like, oh, that made a really good, unique character.
Sure.
It's just a bunch of dumb teenagers running in the woods.
Yeah.
I thought that and this is my problem with all found footage movies, is they don't have a narrative typically that can overcome the gimmick of the found footage approach.
Sure.
So it's like it's relying on the found footage approach to create its unease and its creepiness and things like that. And to me, that wears thin. By the end of an hour and a half, I'm like, okay, I got this gimmick. I understand what it's doing, and it's not really working for me anymore.
Yeah.
And then there's the wave that it caused that I despise, which was this wave in like the mid 2000s, started in the early 2000s, paranormal activity, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where just every year, 5 found footage movies were coming out.
Yep.
And they were just all junk. And typically when I go see a movie in the theater, I don't go as much as I used to. I'd like to go more, but typically when I go, it's for horror movies, just for the experience.
Sure.
And I'd be looking and I'm like, I don't want to see As Above, So Below. There was that one, Phoenix Forgotten. Did you ever see that? It was like an alien found footage.
Yeah.
All the paranormal activity movies. That Bigfoot found footage movie, Willow Creek, I think it was called.
Yep.
And I was just like, all of these are just doing the exact same thing for me, and it's not much.
It was like, it was a lemon. Somebody made lemonade, and then everybody was trying to squeeze every last, it's just, I feel like it's with all genres in anything. It's like, one thing is successful, a bunch of people are going to try to mimic and imitate and whatever. But no, I mean, I will say that I definitely understand like where you're coming from. I think, found footage as a genre, I think is it's not for everybody. I'll just say it that way. You know what I mean? It's like the people that I know who don't like them hate them for, I think, a lot of the same reasons that you brought up. But I think for me, if I may, I think what I like about them, and I will not argue with you that there are some that are just really bad. Like, it is a cheap style of filmmaking, because you don't have to think too far ahead. But I think the fact that it kind of strips away, like when we make like a narrative piece, it's like you said, we got to have the narrative, we got to have the character development. There's all these things that go into kind of telling a story. And I think most found footage movies kind of just do away with that, right? And that could definitely leave it open for some people to be like, well, what's the point? I don't, like you said, I can't sit through 2 hours of this when I don't care about these people. Like, I just can't do it. But I think the fact that it strips all that away, in a way, almost makes it feel more like real life. You know what I mean? It's almost like we're just watching ordinary people. Like, there's no hero, there's not an antagonist and a protagonist. We're literally just watching people who picked up a camera and they're just living through their life. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. For me, it comes down to like my expectations are always very low and like kind of at a good place with found footage movies.
Yeah.
Like Willow Creek to me, I'm assuming you've seen that because you brought that one up. It's pretty boring. It's a pretty boring movie. We can agree on that one. But for me, I love Bigfoot. Like, I like Bigfoot. So I kind of, the whole time, I was like, I'm going to see Bigfoot. Like, this is all whatever. We're going to watch him in the car. We're going to watch him in the tent. Some of the tent stuff I thought was pretty okay. Except it was, exactly derivative of Blair Witch Project. But
I don't even remember. Do you even see Bigfoot?
So okay. Well, spoiler alert for everybody who wants to watch Willow Creek. Whatever, you can watch it anyway, so you can make your own judgment call. But you see what the thing is, but it's not what you would expect Bigfoot to be like. It's kind of like this. I think it's like what I could only explain as like a Neanderthalic like woman who's like literally
so I don't even remember
chasing this guy down. I don't know. The first time I saw it, it caught me so off guard that it was like I was pretty freaked out by it. I was like, oh my god! So these are like they're just like almost people who've just been living this secret like life in the woods. But I'm like, this is not a Sasquatch. You know, so it was kind of a nice, like, they set you up the whole time, like, you know what you're going to see in the end, and then that's not what it is, right? Which, when you say it out loud, it's like, well, that sounds pretty obvious, but, like, it got me, you know what I mean? And for that one reason alone, I'm like, hey, you want a good found footage movie, check this out, you know?
Well, because there are some found footage movies that worked for me. I don't know if you ever saw Troll Hunters.
Yeah.
So I like that movie. Creep, did you ever see Creep?
Creep is good.
Okay,
Creep is good. And those have more, and I feel like I got you figured out. I think that you, and this is a compliment, I think as a filmmaker yourself, and somebody who pays a lot of attention to like the details of plot and everything else, I think that's what you, I think you are so dedicated to having a plot with substance that anything that doesn't have that, you're just kind of out, you know? And I don't think that's a bad opinion for you to have. Not everybody needs to be like a total apologist like I am for these things. Like I will watch stuff, and it's funny because like you could ask my wife this, right? Like we'll watch something, and she'll just be like, "This is terrible," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is like the worst. It's like the worst thing I've ever seen." But I'm like excited about it. She's like, "I don't understand why you're like who does this? Who's like this is so bad? Let's keep watching. Let's see what happens," you know. But I don't know, for me, it's just, I try to, and I think I kind of instilled this in myself early on, probably from my own, like, self-doubt and, like, you know, insecurities. So, like, I don't want people to judge me too hard, you know. And I'm sure you can relate to this, too. Like, having made a movie, especially a feature film, it's like, that has given me such a perspective when I watch a movie, right? Because I can pull up a movie and I can acknowledge, like, hey, this is just not a very good movie, right? But I still know that somebody or a handful of people worked really, really hard to make that, right? And that's something that most people in the world have never done or will never have any idea what kind of work goes into that. And it's easy to just sit on the keyboard, just be like, this is just a plotless, thoughtless, you know, whatever. So I always try to have a little bit of that, like, kind of mindset, even if it's, like, not my favorite movie. It's like I always kind of ask myself, like, what's the director trying to do? Like, what is he trying to say? And sometimes it's really hard. Like Exorcist Believer, right? It's like I wanted to like it so much. Like I knew going in it was gonna be kind of a train wreck in terms of holding up against The Exorcist. There's nobody on the planet.
So bad.
And like, yeah, there's nobody unless you just get all the OGs back together and have them make another. It's just. I mean, much like the Blair Witch Project, right? Like, The Exorcist worked because it was the right time and place. Like, the shock value of that movie, we don't see half of that today. We don't see things like that in movies, right? And this was like, what, the 70s? Like, that came out, like, in the 70s? Like, yeah, that is, like, that's some next level stuff. And, like, you know, I don't know. It was very dangerous for David Gordon Green to take that on. So to me, that's credit to him to be like, you know what, you got balls, you tried it. You said, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this movie. Whether people love it or hate it. I think he was expecting more people to love it, but you know, damn it, you win some, you lose some.
I mean, William Friedkin would be rolling in his grave.
My God, yeah,
that movie was ever made.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the thing that's crazy is if that movie was not Exorcist, right? If that was just the same movie but not in this universe, I think more people would like it. Like, I don't think it would be that bad. It's like, have you seen The Pope's Exorcist?
Yeah.
It's not a great movie, but most people love it because it's like, you know, you got Russell Crowe. Like, yeah. Russell Crowe is like the Exorcist guy.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's all the studio needed. They're like, we got this like Exorcist movie. Like, oh my God, another Exorcist movie. They're like, no, but hear us out, right? We're going to have, everything is going to be CGI. And they're like, just shoot me in the face. They're like, no, but hold on. We got Russell Crowe. And he's like this.
Doing a bad Italian accent.
We're going to make him use an Italian accent. He's like, was an alcoholic or something. And now he's like the Exorcist guy, right? He's out there. He's like, and they were like, yeah, let's see what happens here. Let's see it. So bad movies can be made and people can love it. And then or the opposite can happen. It's like you can take such a beloved thing and then just crucify yourself over it because you're just not gonna live up. But that's my compliment to David, is being like, you tried. I mean, I guaranteed people told you not to do it. Like you gotta have at least one friend or family member or somebody that was like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. I'm sorry, Halloween Ends was really bad. You're not sitting good right now. You need something that's gonna, but he tried it.
He just needs to stop.
Just get, and he did now. He's like, he totally backed out of the whole franchise.
Weren't they planning like a
trilogy
for the next?
Yep. And I think they still kind of are. Like the new one is Exorcist Deceiver.
Oh no.
And all we know now is that David has backed out of it entirely, which good.
Okay.
And for you. And it's like delayed indefinitely. So it's like maybe they're just trying to find somebody else to do it, or maybe somebody's like, okay, let's just not.
But I feel like all these things, I agree with you that having made a movie, you give people who make movies benefit of the doubt. But then I think it becomes like a budget proportionate thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I would, if you have $20 million to make a movie, my expectations are different than if you're working on, I don't know what Curse of Raven Heights or A Hand That Feeds cost, but Dalwa, which I think you've seen, cost $15,000.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're going to, it's easier to watch a low budget movie, give them the benefit of the doubt, and still be able to assess some of the qualities of the acting and things like that, but in a proper mindset. But when you have a movie like Exorcist Believer, and you're bringing back Ellen Burstyn for that,
right? Yeah,
and you have so much to live up to, and you have a studio backing, giving you the money to do it. There is a different standard there,
100%,
of where. Now I can't give you so much the benefit of the doubt that I could give a Paranormal Activity or even a Blair Witch Project or some of these lower budget horror movies. It's people, working their butts off to get it made and using their own money and things like that. So it's a different standard.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. Yeah, I think there's kind of no excuse when you have all the resources. And that's something that's why I'm not for being the way that I am, like I said, giving people the benefit of the doubt and being very trying to see their side of being a cinemapologist. And so that's a term that I've coined, right? Just and I got friends. It's Damien is one of those where it's powering off, not the GoPro.
Oh man, that's the 2-shot.
It's cursed. We're gonna take a brief intermission.
So after the technical difficulties, we're back, and I wanted to slide this topic in for you because I saw you posting a lot about this, and initially when I reached out to you, I had forgot to slide it in there. So to talk about, but physical media is something that I've seen you post a lot about.
Oh yeah,
the importance of physical media. What it means, it's sort of novelty, things like that.
Yeah.
Talk about, what we're seeing in the phasing out of that with Best Buy and what your thoughts are on that.
It's very difficult for me and for people like me because it's I think this can be said with anybody who is a collector of sorts, is there's a nostalgia to it. You know what I mean? We're constantly trying to hold on to those memories. And for me, again, it goes back to a young age of going to Blockbuster, going to my mom and pop rental shops. You know what I mean? That was how I spent my free time. You know what I mean? And it was like, even as I got older, it's like that to me, that was date night. Let's get dinner and rent a movie, you know? So there's just, you know, those are the reasons. I think for a lot of people who are into physical media, especially movies, it's kind of that same thing. It's a lot of my generation people who are just holding on. But I think it's interesting now with streaming being so convenient and so prevalent now. But I think people are finally starting to see that, like, they have a lot of control. I mean, they have all the control. You know what I mean? Even things that you have purchased, it's like, you know what I mean? I think PlayStation just went through a whole thing now where it's like people have purchased digital content. They have a digital library, and all of a sudden titles are just gone from that. They're just not there anymore because something changed with the licensing or the, you know, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said on both ends. Like, for me, it's like, you know, even if streaming was like the perfect solution, I would still collect physical media anyway. But I think people are starting to realize why it's important, you know, when you don't have the access that you thought you did. You know, and we go through that in my house all the time. It's like, even my son and his girlfriend, like the other day, he just came up. It was like the most random thing. He's just like, we're watching the X-Men trilogy. And I'm like, which one? You know, it's like the original. And, you know, two of them, and Amazon seems to do this a lot, where it's like they had the first X-Men and then they had Last Stand. But they didn't have X-Men 2. You had to buy that one. You had to pay, yeah.
Oh, no.
They did that with, like, they had the Rocky. I mean, my wife and I do every year, we watch through the Rocky series. Okay. It's like one of the best, you know. But out of convenience, I was like, well, it's on Amazon, and I don't have to go hunt it down or pull it out. Same thing is like 1 and 2 free. All the other ones you gotta pay. You gotta rent it. So it's like, that's kind of their gimmick. But I love that I have those. It was like, yeah, I got X-Men 2. Right. So that's somewhere in the back, down on that bottom shelf somewhere. But yeah, I just think it's kind of it's just invaluable. You know what I mean? And it's, again, I don't think it's unique to that. I think it's, people will say the same thing. People who are into vinyl or like CDs or video games. It's like, there's just something about having it, you know. And then as a filmmaker, for me, it's like, obviously the special features, you know what I mean? I want to watch the special features. I want to hear the commentary, and I want to be able to do those things whenever I want.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that in there. Because, I 100% agree with you. Actually, what I just did over the past probably 3 years is I watched through, in chronological order, with my mom, my whole collection of movies. Oh, man. And so it was like 450 movies between 1925, Gold Rush, and I think it was Malignant was my one, if you ever saw that. Yep. And yeah, it's like, that's cool. It's just a cool thing to do. Yep. You know, if you tried to do that with streaming, you know, then you wouldn't be able to do it. So I like seeing that from you.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's my thing. I feel like people kind of do the aimless, like, scroll through. If you ever do that? I feel like when I'm on a service, unless I'm going for something specific, I feel like I spend more time scrolling through things than I spend watching something. And for me, it's a lot easier to just look over at my shelves and be like, I haven't seen that movie in a while, you know? Yes. I don't know, just a different thing.
For sure.
And I wish more people were like it. It makes me really sad, like the whole Best Buy thing. That's like, at least on my algorithm of the internet, like I have video after video of people being like, well, this is my last Best Buy purchase. Shelves are going empty, you know? Yeah. But it's just kind of the direction the world's going, and hopefully we see it, you know, hopefully it swings back around. I don't know. Like, I still have VHS tapes. Oh, yeah. You know, that's where it started for me. It's like, I have that collection, you know. It'll swing around. Just Yep. Yeah. I'm holding on hope.
Right. All right. So I want to jump to this segment because I think it's going to be fun. It's called I'm not skipping over your upcoming project. I want to hear about those. Yeah. But so the director debate wheel. Something that I came up with.
It's a good idea. It got me a little nervous.
And so it is a wheel of directors, famous directors, that
fit the genre nicely.
Yeah.
It's a good list.
I'm just going to spin it here. We'll have it up here. Yeah, it's not up there now.
And to your credit for the audience at home, you did tell me the list and make sure that you were going to catch me with my pants down, so to speak.
Right.
So good host, right?
All right, so we'll give this a spin here, and whoever it lands on is who we're going to talk about.
Oh man, this could be a big conversation or a short one. Ooh. It's like,
all right. So,
all right,
Wes Craven.
Wes Craven.
You share his first name?
I mean, well, let's get the obvious out of the way. Wins points on namesake for sure. Much cooler last name than I have, but it's all right.
So let's just, in case the audience isn't as familiar, I'm going to pull up his filmography.
Let's pull it up for us also, because I'm going to be honest with you. I only got like a couple that come to mind.
Yeah, so we'll pull up his basic filmography for everybody to see. So obviously, Scream series.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. Two big ones.
The original Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
He did. Obviously, he's passed now, I think.
Yeah.
So, R.I.P. to him.
This one's for you, other Wes. I'll just drink it instead for you.
But yeah, obviously huge in the horror genre, some of the most iconic stuff. So we could take a look at what he directed here. Obviously, we know Scream. His last movie that he directed, I guess, was Scream 4. They've obviously continued that.
Yeah.
Last House on the Left, which is
Last House. Yeah.
Last House on the Left. Yeah.
People Under the Stairs. Yeah. He's had a good career, but I would say the biggest thing with him is how many directors have had like two iconic franchises. It's one thing to have one, you know what I mean? But Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, it's like they're two colossal franchises that have arguably inspired a good vast majority of of tropes and things that we see today. So
right, I want to look here. So he did direct all four of the original Scream.
Yeah,
obviously they've continued that franchise.
Yeah,
but my two favorite Scream movies out of the whole franchise are 1 and 4.
Yeah,
I would actually argue that 4 is almost better than 1.
Okay.
And I think the new Screams have not done the originals justice, but to me, like Wes Craven is at his best when there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek stuff going on with his work.
Yeah.
So like Scream obviously has a comedy element to it. His original Hills Have Eyes didn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall the original one. I feel like there's some of them are so kind of long separated from me. But I also think that at least with Scream, it's like one person. I mean, obviously Wes Craven is a master at his craft and a very, very detailed, very good, methodical director. But like Kevin Williamson as a writer, I think, and I'll just say it as a writer,
just keep going. I'll use your shot.
I'll say as a writer, I think Kevin Williamson doesn't get the credit he deserves because it's like, especially with Scream and just how, I don't know, every time I think of that movie, it's like, I can't imagine how complicated it would be to write that, not only one time, but then continuously find new ways to introduce that same concept in a way that still twists and turns. I should have my wife talk on that though. She's a much bigger Scream fan than I am, but credit where credit is due,
Yeah, for sure.
I like the new ones though. But again, of course I would. Yeah. I'm just like, all right, let's reinvent it. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, like the original appeal of Scream was obviously it playing on the tropes of the horror genre.
Yeah.
And to me, the new ones, they just got too obvious with it. Like there wasn't any subtlety. It wasn't really tongue-in-cheek. It was like, oh, well, this is a sequel, so this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
This is where we're adding new characters that are going to die, and this person's going to do, it just, literally, the characters on camera are laying out what it's supposed to be subverting in a smart way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and this is too in your face.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like it's less. I don't even know what the word is. Like it's definitely like not as well thought out, or maybe a similar thing of like Blair Witch and some of these where like it's just hard to get us to buy into that after it's already been done so well. I did like the sister. What is like the older sister is like. Was it her older brother was the original guy who did like I thought that was like an interesting kind of story element. I would have liked to see them sort of like develop that a little more. And that's what I was kind of expecting for like like Scream 6, like okay, cool, whatever. New characters, bringing it back. Out with some of the old, in with some new, like it was fine for me. But I really wanted the new like the 7 to really just dive into that storyline of like, is she the new Ghostface, or is she destined to be the new Ghostface? Like, I don't know, just something there. And like, and at the end, she kind of just threw the mask down, and like, that was kind of okay. But I'm like, but does that just mean you're just not doing this anymore? Like, I don't, it was just, I just felt it was more confusing than like compelling for me, But
so Jennifer's being our savior here, and I don't want her arms to get tired. So I'm kind of
you hold it forever.
Breeze through these last couple topics.
Yeah.
First, I want to hear your thoughts. So obviously, it's the new year. Happy New Year.
Yeah. You too.
It's always fun to go over what your favorite movies were of the past year. So 2023, what were some of your favorites?
I'm always so bad at this too, because it's like all of a sudden the brain shuts down, and I'm like. Well, we'll keep it to horror because that's obviously our theme tonight. I have to say that far and away my hat is off to Talk to Me.
Yep.
Talk to Me, I think was probably it was scary. That was just really scary to me. Cool idea. Tropes that weren't entirely original, but again, it just serves the point of like, you don't have to have the most out there unique thing. Just tell it in an inventive, new, compelling way. And I thought Talk to Me did it very well. It's just a couple of YouTube guys too. I forget what their names are. Not big in the YouTube world, but
right. Yeah, I forget their names.
But
yeah, that one of the horror. I think the only horror movies I saw last year were Megan.
Yeah, Megan,
the Boogeyman.
Yep.
And Talk to Me. And Talk to Me was far and away
the best one. Yeah, I liked all of those. But yeah, Talk to Me was the one that kind of takes the cake. Megan was fine. I think, I don't know. I feel like Blumhouse, and I don't know if you heard about the merger between Jason Blum and James Wan, but they have officially merged now. Which I think is a good thing, because it seems like neither one of them individually can really give us like a heavy hitter anymore. Like, I don't know. Malignant was fine, but I didn't love it. I was just like, this is just kind of bonkers. Like, and I like bonkers, but I'm like, I expect more from you, Mr. Wan. Like, I just do, When I like Aquaman more than I like a horror movie you do, that's an issue for me. But I loved Aquaman. Now, I haven't seen the second one yet, but the first one. I love the first one. And Jason Blum, the same thing. It's like, it just seems like he's kind of more misses lately than hits. And I haven't seen like Night Swim or whatever yet, but I'm not hearing good things about it. So, So anyway, I think Talk to Me was very good. I'm trying to think because Pearl always comes back to mind. The new Ty West, but I don't know. I don't think that was this year though. I think that was maybe technically
might have been a couple.
Maybe technically a couple years ago.
It
but
was this past year. Yeah, that was very.
That's like that was pretty top. I think Mia Goth was kind of a very a big breath of fresh air in the horror community. Just incredible.
I'm gonna have to have you on again to have this debate about Malignant, because I loved Malignant.
Did you love it?
I loved it.
I didn't dislike it. I'll say it. I didn't dislike it, but I just wasn't like, oh my god. I don't know, man. Movies are weird like that. Movies are so weird.
Because it's like it. I liked it more than any Conjuring movie.
That's so wild.
Saw movie.
Like that. Okay. Yeah.
And so
I'll give you that.
Like I don't know. I loved it, but anyway, conversation great.
To be continued in the sequel.
Right. Yeah. So the last thing I want to end with is any upcoming projects you want to plug. Anything you got going on, people you want to shout out.
Oh, we always got some moves. Steve and I are always up to something. So we kind of took a little break going into the new year to just sort of recenter and refocus. But we got a couple things we're working up to. A big one is a project called Beth, which is a very near and dear to my heart story that we're calling A Love Letter to George Romero. And it's I'll give this to you because you're my pal, and I've never said it this way, but the goal for it, nothing we've achieved yet, but a hopeful goal for it is to be an actual sequel to Day of the Dead.
Wow.
With certain characters that we want to bring in and the kind of story that we're telling. So that's kind of the dream. And I don't think I've ever just outright said that. So you get that. So
That's awesome.
So that's a big one. We're kind of in the early stages of sort of working that out. It's a little tricky because we're indie filmmakers. We don't know anything about how to secure rights to a domain that doesn't belong to us.
Right.
But it's something that we're working on. Blair and I are kind of back at it a little bit. So Blair's the one who directed The Curse of Raven Heights and The Hand That Feeds. It's kind of that's sort of been our long running partnership as I write and he's kind of directed some stuff. And then we took a break because I obviously was directing my own stuff. But I'm working on a new script for him to direct called The Atoning. And that'll be very bonkers. I think I used that word earlier.
Yeah.
This will be kind of a wild, kind of trippy movie. I think you'll dig it. Yeah, you kind of like the weird, trippy stuff. There's a lot of different influences in that. There's some. I don't know if you play video games at all.
Yeah, occasionally.
Alan Wake. Got to play those games.
Yeah.
Got to play them both. You got to. You'll love it. Oh my god, it's like a horror, and then it's a rock opera. And then it's like, I don't know what the hell it is. It's all over the place. It's really, really, really good. The second one. The first one's good too, but I feel like you got to play the first one to really love the second one. But it's a lot of Alan Wake in that, a lot of Twin Peaks. I'm a really big Twin Peaks fan. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
just show of all time, personally.
Really? Yeah. Oh, that's why we're friends. That makes a lot of sense. I absolutely love Twin Peaks. Then you will really love Alan Wake. Okay. Alan Wake has a lot of Twin Peaks inspiration. So just different. That's again trying some new stuff that we haven't done before. Trying to like kind of step away from just shock and gore and all these other things, and kind of just tell a really spiraling story that kind of sucks you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, I look forward to seeing all of those.
What about you? What are you working on?
I'm working on season 2 of Forced PTO.
Best, and I'm saying this with all seriousness. I love it. I swear I'm one of your biggest fans. I love that show.
Me too.
I don't know what it is. Like, it's just so good. It's just, I don't know. Just talking about good character building, right? Yeah. It's like, and you use yourself in that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I feel like if all of America, it's only a matter of time before the people of the internet start calling you the PTO guy. It's just gonna happen, dude. Every time the endorphin rush I get when a new episode is there, and I'm like, oh, nobody talked to me for 7.5 minutes. I love it, and the way you ended season 1. Just like killed me, dude. It just got me right in the heart. I'm like, oh my god, he's doing that. He just ruined the whole experience, but in a way made all the sense of the world. And then you did season 2, and I gotta catch up. I've seen the first episode.
That's all.
Is that all? It's out, just the first one. Okay. I thought you'd put a second one out.
No.
Okay, then I'm not missing. Then I'm caught up.
Yeah, you're caught up. Yeah. Season 2 will end hopefully as emotionally resonant, but in a more uplifting way.
Okay.
Last season. Okay. But yes, I appreciate it.
I felt if you could see what I looked like when that was all done, I looked like, you remember the Truman Show?
Yeah.
I was the dude in the bath when Truman was like drowning in the boat, right? I was destroyed. I was like, I'm feeling for this guy so much. Yeah. No, it was great. Sorry, it's your podcast. We had to talk about Force. So good. If you guys haven't watched it, you have to.
I appreciate that. A couple other things down the road is Filter is a short film that I worked on with Gene for here. We got that coming up. That's in post-production right now.
Is that the one? Was that the one that you had? I saw a picture of you with like Dan Delano.
Yeah.
Is that it? Dan came in to help on that? That's cool. That's really cool.
Dan is editing right now.
Is he?
And
Cool.
he's doing the VFX as well.
Dan Delano is he is a treat to this industry.
Yes.
I think he should work with more people. He's a little like kind of Dan's like does this Dan thing, and that's cool. But man, he's good.
Yeah. And the last thing is I made a second feature a while back called Water Park in the Winter. It's silent.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it stars myself, Kylie Sterner, and Tessa Toriano, who we worked with. It was fantastic. Love her. Yeah. And yeah, that was just sort of like a cinematic experiment thing that I made to try out, and it was kind of a cool thing to do. It honestly be a love it or hate it kind of thing, but yeah, I like it a lot. So
when does that come? Is that like?
I'm not sure. It's on the festival circuit right now. Yeah. It just depends. Depending on how well we do in the places that I've submitted, will determine whether I release it sooner for people to see or keep it out there. But yeah, it's just coming down the pipeline, and you know, I'm just happy to make anything with the people on the Minnesota film scene because there's so many talented people.
100%. We have a good community for sure. We got a good, rich, abundant community. And I think we're all lucky for that.
No.
Very true.
All right. So, yeah, check out those upcoming projects from Wes. I had a great time talking to Wes. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Let's do it again. Yes, we could go forever, I think.
All right. Everybody, this is called filMNetwork with a capital N at the end of film and a capital N at the beginning of network.
Okay.
That was clever when I came up with it. Anyway, that's what the podcast is called. You guys can like and subscribe to see more episodes.